They used my home address on 150 wedding invitations, and I only found out when angry strangers started knocking on my door demanding directions to the ceremony. My heart dropped as I stood frozen, staring at the pile of envelopes stuffed into my mailbox, all stamped with my address in bold print. I felt sick. My own family had dragged me into their wedding drama without even asking me if I was okay with it. Before I continue, make sure you hit that subscribe button and share this story, because trust me, you won't believe the twist waiting at the end. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake, some mix-up at the print shop. But then I flipped through the stack and saw the handwriting on the return labels. It was my cousin Jessica's. She was getting married, and apparently her brilliant idea was to use my apartment as the RSVP address. I could already hear her voice in my head. "It's not a big deal, Layla. You live alone. You have space for mail." But this wasn't just mail. This was chaos, disrespect, and a slap in the face. By evening, it wasn't just envelopes. Strangers actually started showing up, asking me questions about parking, venues, and rehearsal dinners. One woman even accused me of ruining the bride's big day when I told her I wasn't part of the planning. My hands shook as I shut the door in her face. How could Jessica humiliate me like this, turning my home into her wedding post office? And then, as I scrolled through social media later that night, my jaw dropped. Jessica had tagged me in her wedding group chat, calling me the helpful cousin who volunteered her place for all RSVP stuff. The comments below were filled with laughing emojis, some even mocking me. Of course Layla would do it. What else does she have going on? But what Jessica and her little cheerleaders didn't know was that I had been hiding something. Something big. And when the right moment came, her wedding would no longer be about her fairy tale. It would be about my revenge. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those laughing comments, Jessica painting me like some desperate, jobless cousin with nothing better to do. The humiliation burned deeper because my own uncles and aunts had joined in, adding fuel. Layla should feel honored. At least she's useful for something. Useful? They had reduced me to a mailbox, a doormat. The next morning, the nightmare escalated. A delivery guy rang my bell with 3 massive packages, wedding gifts from guests who thought they were sending them to Jessica. My hallway was now cluttered with fancy boxes, and the thought of more piling in made my stomach twist. I called Jessica right away, my voice shaking with anger. "Why would you give out my address without even asking me?" She laughed, loud and careless. "Relax, Layla. You don't even own anything worth breaking in your apartment. It's not like anyone's gonna rob you." Her tone sliced through me like a knife. She didn't just dismiss my privacy, she mocked my life, my worth. When I tried to argue, she snapped, "You should be grateful. This way you're actually part of the wedding. Don't make it a big deal." Then she hung up. I wanted to scream. My chest felt heavy with rage, but deep inside, a different feeling was rising. Determination. Because while Jessica thought I was the poor, lonely cousin with no life, she had no idea about the hours I'd been pouring into a startup I built quietly, behind closed doors. I never bragged, never shared, not even when people mocked me for having no future. But the truth was, my company had just landed a contract so massive, it would make Jessica's entire wedding budget look like loose change. And yet, I kept silent. I needed the timing to be perfect. That afternoon, another blow came. My aunt called and, without even saying hello, ordered me to make sure the RSVP list is organized by Friday. Apparently, they expected me not just to receive mail, but to work for them, sorting, counting, and even confirming replies with guests I didn't even know. It was like my blood turned to fire. The audacity was unreal. But instead of shouting back, I agreed with a calm voice. "Sure, I'll handle it." Because in that moment, I realized something. The more they used me, the sweeter the downfall would taste when my secret came to light, and the opportunity for that downfall came faster than I expected, because Jessica herself decided to throw a family wedding prep dinner that weekend. Everyone would be there. Everyone who mocked me. Everyone who thought I was their doormat. And that's where I planned to flip the script. But what I didn't know was that Jessica had one more insult waiting for me. Something so bold, so humiliating it nearly broke me. Until I turned it into my weapon. The dinner felt like walking into a trap. I arrived at my aunt's house carrying one of the giant packages that had been wrongly delivered to me, thinking maybe it would ease some tension if I returned it. But the moment I stepped in, the air shifted. Eyes turned, whispers spread. It wasn't just a dinner, it was an ambush. Jessica stood at the center of the living room in her designer dress, glowing with fake charm. And then, with a smirk that made my stomach twist, she raised her glass. Everyone, can we give a round of applause to Layla? She's been such a good sport letting us use her address for all the wedding invitations. Honestly, she's practically the wedding assistant at this point. The room erupted in laughter. My uncles clapped like it was a comedy show. My cousins whispered things loud enough for me to hear. She finally found a purpose. At least she's useful. My face burned, and I forced a smile, clutching the package in my hands like it was the only thing keeping me from crumbling. I wanted to scream, to shout, to expose everything right then, but I held back. Timing was everything. As we sat down for dinner, the insults didn't stop. Jessica's fiancé, David, leaned across the table and asked in front of everyone, "So, Layla, when you're done playing secretary, maybe you can pick up our dry cleaning before the big day." More laughter. Even Jessica's parents joined in. They weren't just mocking me, they were enjoying my humiliation like it was entertainment. But then Jessica crossed the line. She pulled out a stack of RSVP envelopes, slammed them on the table, and said, "Layla, since you're already handling this, why don't you sort these out now? Might as well make yourself useful in front of the family." My hands froze. They wanted me to work like a servant during dinner. And the worst part? Some of them nodded in agreement, like it was completely normal to treat me this way. Something inside me snapped. I didn't explode, but I made a decision. This wouldn't just be about revealing my success. It would be about turning their laughter into silence so heavy it would crush them. I leaned back, keeping my voice steady. "Sure, Jessica, I'll handle it. But just remember, sometimes the people you call servants are the ones holding keys to things you can't even imagine." She rolled her eyes, brushing me off. "Oh, please, Layla, you don't even own a car. Stop pretending." The table roared again. What they didn't know was that while they mocked me for not owning a car, the contract I had signed last month gave me shares in a tech company worth more than Jessica's entire circle combined. And the deal was about to be announced publicly in less than a week. As I looked around the table watching them choke on their laughter, I knew one thing for sure. Their wedding wasn't going to be remembered for Jessica's dress, or the flowers, or the cake. It was going to be remembered for the night their useless cousin turned their world upside down. But just when I thought I had the upper hand, Jessica's father blindsided me with something that made my blood run cold and forced me to change my plan entirely. Jessica's father, Uncle Mark, was the type of man who thrived on control, loud voice, sharp words, always reminding everyone he was the provider of the family. As the dinner plates were cleared, he leaned back in his chair, staring straight at me with a smirk that made my chest tighten. "You know, Layla," he began, tapping his glass with a fork, "since you've been so involved in the wedding, I've decided we'll list your name as the point of contact on the guest programs. That way, if anyone has questions, they'll call you directly. Don't worry, you don't have much going on anyway." The room erupted in more laughter, but this time the humiliation cut deeper. They weren't just using my address anymore. They were branding me as their unpaid help in front of the entire guest list. My hands curled into fists under the table, and for a second, I thought I might actually break down. But instead of tears, something else rose inside me. Fire. I looked at Uncle Mark and said softly, "Are you sure you want my name there?" He raised an eyebrow, clearly entertained. "Of course, why? Scared the big responsibility is too much for you?" The words hit me like a challenge. And I knew right then, I wasn't going to wait until after the wedding. No, Their downfall would happen sooner. The next day, I took action, quietly, strategically. I reached out to the PR manager of the tech company I had partnered with. Our contract wasn't just big, it was groundbreaking. We had secured a multi-million-dollar deal with one of the largest firms in Silicon Valley. And the official announcement was scheduled for the same weekend as Jessica's wedding. A wicked idea sparked in my mind. What if I shifted the spotlight? What if, while they were busy flaunting their designer gowns and flower arrangements, the world turned its eyes on me, the cousin they mocked? I requested that the press release include not just the company name, but also my name as the lead negotiator and co-owner. The manager hesitated at first, but when I explained my role, she agreed. By the time Jessica would walk down the aisle, headlines would already be circulating about me. But fate wasn't done testing me yet. 2 nights before the wedding, Jessica showed up at my apartment without warning. She barged in like she owned the place, tossed a pile of RSVP cards on my coffee table and said, "You better bring these sorted to the wedding. If you mess this up, I'll never forgive you." Her eyes scanned my apartment, and then she chuckled. Still the same old Layla. No upgrades, no future. "I actually feel sorry for you." I clenched my jaw, holding back a smile. Because in less than 48 hours, her perfect little fantasy would shatter. And the person she pitied the most would become the one she envied forever. What I didn't expect, though, was that Jessica would try to humiliate me one last time, publicly, during the wedding ceremony itself. But what she thought was her moment of triumph turned out to be the exact setup I needed to crush her pride in front of everyone. The wedding day arrived, all glitter and glamour. The venue was dripping with flowers, crystal chandeliers, and guests in their finest clothes. From the outside, it looked like perfection, but I knew the cracks were about to split wide open. The moment I walked in, whispers followed me like shadows. Cousins smirked, aunts nudged each other, and even strangers eyed me as if I were the wedding assistant Jessica had painted me to be. And then it happened. The humiliation Jessica had been saving for her big moment. As the music faded, she stood on the stage with a microphone in hand. Her smile was blinding, but her words were venom. "Before we start the ceremony," she announced, "I want to thank my cousin Layla. She's been so helpful, handling all the boring tasks, sorting mail, doing the jobs nobody else wanted." Laughter erupted across the hall, bouncing off the golden walls. Jessica's voice grew sharper, cutting through the noise. "Honestly, Layla, you should think of this as practice. Maybe one day you'll finally be good enough to plan your own wedding. If anyone ever wants you." The laughter hit me like knives. For a second, my hands shook, my throat tightened. They wanted me to break. They wanted me small, but then my phone buzzed. A notification lit up my screen. My PR manager had sent the link. The press release was live. My pulse quickened as I rose from my seat, every eye locked on me. I walked to the center of the hall and said, "Jessica, you're right. I have been busy, sorting your mail, listening to your jokes. But while you planned this wedding, I was signing contracts. And today, while you're celebrating, the news just broke." I held up my phone. The headline glowing, "Local Startup Lands $12 million Contract. Co-founder Layla Thompson leads negotiation." Gasps filled the room. Jessica's smile vanished, her fiancé froze, and Uncle Mark dropped his glass to the floor. I let the silence stretch before delivering the final blow. "I'm not your wedding assistant. I'm not your doormat. The cousin you mocked is now wealthier and more powerful than anyone here." Whispers spread, phones lit up, and Jessica's fairy tale cracked in front of everyone. As I walked out, I felt pure justice. They tried to bury me in humiliation, but all they did was plant the seed of my revenge.